Okay, now we are live.
Alright. Hello and welcome to what promises to be an incredibly massive episode of SmashPad Live for the weekend of December 7th, 2014. This is our big PlayStation Experience special, but as it so happened, a bunch of other things just ended up happening in the gaming world throughout the course of the week, so we'll be covering those as well. I'm Patrick Mifflin.
I'm Filippo and
And before we get started, what have you been playing this week?
I've been playing pretty much the same thing as last week, Diablo 3, Defense Grid 2, some Forza Horizon 2, and I also added Injustice for the PS4 to that list, seeing as it came out on PS Plus, and it was the first opportunity I've had to play that game.
Yeah, just as well, and it's a really good fighting game and proves that NetherRealm Studios is determined to be more than just the Mortal Kombat team.
Yeah, I definitely get a Mortal Kombat vibe from the game, because they have a certain style that's all their own, but
they really do.
Yeah, it feels good. It's got a nice fighting system. I kind of wish they'd they didn't have that stutter step style timing that most of their games are known for, but that's kind of a minor quip.
Yeah, it's kind of just not Mortal Kombat enough to throw you off too.
Yeah.
But it definitely helps it have its own thing going.
Yeah. Anytime you can, play as Batman and beat the crap out of the Joker, you're doing something right.
It's good times.
Yeah. How about you? What have you been playing?
So that capture card I've been talking about on the show finally arrived, and as promised, I have begun the process of inundating YouTube with Ridge Racers 2 videos, and that's actually what I'm kind of doing right now, off stream.
Okay.
And so, I'm having a good time doing that. I'm going back and playing through pretty much the entire career mode, if you will. I'm not sure that's really what I call it. I guess it's called Tour.
Yeah.
But it's just a really good collection of the first 7 or 8 years of Ridge Racer, and it's a shame that it never found its way stateside, because it's probably the best game in the series, and I don't want to say too much because we do have that piece coming up, but I really think it sits well in the genre.
Yeah. Do you think if someone's going to get one Ridge Racer game, that's the one they ought to track down?
It's the one. I mean, if you got a PSP, consoleized or otherwise, and go on eBay, the game's everywhere, probably around 25 to 30 bucks. Import it. If you get it from Europe, it's completely in English, so you don't have to worry about a language barrier. And there's so much content in this game. I mean, the first Ridge Racer on PSP that we got over here, even that was no slouch for content, but compared to the sequel, I mean, this is just staggering. It's got effectively all the courses from Ridge Racer Revolution, Rave Racer, Rage Racer, and R4. All packed in there. And so it's really a collection of like I said, the first, I guess it would be 6 years, 5 or 6 years, because R4 was 98, so yeah. It's a shame that they didn't have more stuff in there to get R5 or to get Ridge Racer 5 covered. But what is in here is fantastic, and it's all really well packaged with by a completely revamped game engine, which is really good because as good as Ridge Racer is, some of those early engines were really raw.
Yeah, so I do remember the clipping through the rocks issues.
Yeah, this is Ridge Racer perfected, and it was the reason that I had such high hopes for Ridge Racer 6 and 7 when 7th generation was getting started, but honestly, those fell a little short of the standard set by this game. This is the one to have.
Okay.
And I will be doing everything I can, by the power of this capture card that's sitting on top of my computer right now, just to showcase this game the best I can and to get awareness going, because it really does, it does deserve a North American release.
Yeah. That's kind of
anything else you've been playing?
Well, not really. It's been kind of a quiet week.
Oh, that was bad. And yeah, I'll keep that on the video so you'll know exactly what I was talking about. So I guess we gotta get started with the news because we've got a whole lot of it. So the news cycle kind of started with Phil Spencer over in the Xbox arm of the industry. Just in a passing tweet, he confirmed that JRPGs are in fact going to be a thing on Xbox One, which is kind of surprising for a few reasons. They recently sort of recalled the head of their Japanese branch to the company proper, and a lot of people are looking at that as a possible closing up shop in the Japanese market, which no one could blame them for, honestly.
No, Xbox hasn't really traditionally done well in Japan, and they just, no matter what they do, they can't seem to crack that market.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily say anything about developer relations. Obviously, the Xbox 360 had its share of JRPGs, but that was 7th generation. 8th generation, you're seeing Sony get super hawkish with the genre, especially as of PlayStation Experience that we'll be talking about toward the bottom of the show, but also at TGS this past fall. And then you got Nintendo. They've got a few that are coming out themselves. It's almost like Microsoft is just getting ready to snatch up some table scraps, to be brutally honest.
I'm sure they see it as, they know that JRPGs are, a pretty popular niche, and I think they want to serve as many of those smaller niches as they can.
Yeah, and they'd probably be doing well to put good money on it, because it doesn't seem like it's going to stay as a smaller niche for very long if Sony has their way. So that could very well be one of those Battlefield genres that really tends to define what 8th gen is going to be about. We discussed that on the last show, and I would be thrilled if JRPGs made that return to the prominence that they enjoyed during the late 90s. And now it's starting to look like that might not be out of the question.
Yeah, it really does seem like they're making a bit of a resurgence, and I think, probably Bravely Default was kind of the harbinger of that.
Yeah, that was definitely the game that started it all, and nobody really expected it to be a smash hit when Nintendo snapped up the North American publishing rights, and that was kind of that was kind of what set everything into motion that we're seeing at Square Enix now. And if that's going to be if that's going to be the huge influence it's looking like, then I'm really excited. I can't wait to see what comes of it, not just through the end of the year and what news might still come out of PlayStation Experience, but we've also got E3 coming up here in
6 months or so.
I believe as of this week it's exactly 6 months.
Yep.
So stay tuned, because we're going to know pretty well by then how everything going on at PlayStation Experience is going to be received, and hopefully by then we have a better idea of, you know, where development's going to be going in the long run.
Yeah.
And there's been another kind of good sign. Japanese gamers were recently polled about what game remakes they want to see most. And it's kind of funny. We'll get to the punchline of this at the end of the show. But the number one game on the list was Final Fantasy VII, and other than that, the list was really super populated with it was JRPGs and Resident Evil, really.
Yeah,
there was Final Fantasy, there was Dragon Quest, there was Kingdom Hearts, and then there was Resident Evil, and those four franchises kind of dominated the list. And so that should be Resident Evil notwithstanding, because I'm still convinced that Capcom really doesn't know what they want that genre, what they want that series to be. But this is a degree of demand that you can't ignore. And so hopefully that leads to more things, you know, to be announced. I personally would love to see a return to Grandia and, dare I say it, Lunar out of all this. I'm keeping my expectations realistic, but like any fan of any genre, I have my hopes, and that's definitely where mine lie.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't personally mind seeing another Lunar, especially in, you know, redone with I'm thinking a nice cel-shaded art style would probably work well for that,
would be perfect.
Series.
Especially with Kubuoka's art style. There are problems with the potential return of a Lunar series. Basically, the entire thing is trapped in legal hell, and that's why we haven't seen it make a comeback on PS1 Classics or anything of that sort. Even though Vic Ireland has been trying like mad to make it happen, he said it's like pulling teeth. And apparently over on the Japanese side of things, there, I don't know, lawsuits, all kinds of red tape surrounding anyone doing anything with that series. And even when something does slip through the cracks, I mean, Lunar Legend and Lunar Dragon Song, not really what we want to see them doing with the series.
No.
So hopefully somehow that house can find its way into order, and there can be a future for that series. But right now it's kind of looking grim.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate, because of the 90s, I mean, that was one of the bigger RPG series back then.
Yeah.
There were only two of them, but they were very, very good.
Yeah, I remember when Eternal Blue first came out on the Sega CD, and there was very serious debate among the fans whether that game was better than Final Fantasy VI or not. That's not a comparison that you can take lightly.
No, it is not.
But yeah, putting the JRPGs away, at least for the moment, Masahiro Sakurai over at HAL Labs recently mentioned in passing that he's probably done making Super Smash Brothers games. And as good as they come out on his watch, and honestly the only ones that have been made have come out on his watch, you can't really blame the guy.
Yeah, after a while you kind of want to do something else.
Well, not only that, but he was complaining, especially during the development of Super Smash Bros. Brawl just years ago, that the stress was grating on him. He was having some health concerns because of the development of the game, and he just kept plugging along. And I was really surprised that when Super Smash Bros. 4 came along, that he was still the guy. He was still the one putting it together. He's been a good soldier for Nintendo, but I think, you know, his issues sound even more serious than Iwata's were, and at the very least, we can definitely look forward to whatever comes next from him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you gotta figure, you know, you're building a game where you're balancing pretty much every franchise that's ever been popular, and you're doing it all in one game. So that's like, you know, stress multiplied several times over. I would imagine.
And, yeah, everything handles super true to its origins, and then you add the fact that while not a fighting game, I still maintain you've got this whole community of players that are applying the same kind of pressure and same kind of demand on the balance of the game that you would expect out of the fighting genre and the fighting game community. So I'm honestly surprised that he came back to do this game, and if this is really it for Sakurai making Smash Brothers, at least he left us with a damn good one.
Yeah. And I would imagine over the Wii U's life cycle, they'll probably just continually keep updating it. They've got the platform in place now for DLC characters, stages, and all that stuff, so I wouldn't be surprised for them to just keep adding on to it instead of doing a completely new game.
Yeah, well, they seem to be doing the Mario Kart thing with it, where it's one per generation, and so I don't doubt at all that there's going to be continued DLC even beyond Mewtwo. Also, there's the real estate on the select screen too. I mean, you can cram 3 more characters on there, and even more than that if you continue shrinking the icons like they have been wont to do.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, I also noticed this when I was playing Mario Kart 8. It looks like you have a pretty solid sized character select screen when you first start playing it, along with some question mark boxes, and then it turns out that they've been lying about entire rows that just start popping up as you continue playing through. And so, yeah, you can never really take for granted that a select screen or a layout like that is going to tell you the truth when Nintendo's involved.
Yeah.
Because
more often than not, it changes on you.
Smash Brothers, they've definitely proven deceptive.
Yeah. But well, I wish Sakurai the best, and we'll see what he does next.
Yeah, we're fans of him here at SmashPad, and it's like I said, I look forward to seeing what he does next, and hopefully it doesn't take as much out of him, because I mean, beyond everything else, making video games for a living is the dream. It's one of those jobs that you aim for, and not one of the ones that you just kind of end up at.
Yeah.
And to see that doing to Sakurai what one of those types of jobs you just kind of end up doing would do to a person, it's kind of disheartening, and you just can't help but feel really bad for the guy.
Yeah.
Especially since it, you know, not to really put people in general on blast necessarily, but it is his own fans that are doing it to him.
Yeah. Yeah, your fan base can be, you know, your biggest supporters, but they can also be your biggest trials.
Yeah. But it's like I said, yeah, if this is it for him with the franchise, then I don't see how he could have sent it out on a higher note.
Yeah.
Because Smash 4 is definitely a masterpiece.
Yeah.
So, moving away from Smash Brothers into an actual fighting game, we got a little bit of surprising news a couple days ago that was kind of rumored up to this point, but not really confirmed. Dead or Alive 5 Last Round is in fact headed to PC, and with a caveat.
Very big
we're not
caveat.
going to be getting, we're not going to be getting online play with it for a while.
Yeah.
Right now it's looking like from the time it launches on PC, the online could be a good 3 months out. And so you really got to wonder what's going on over at Tecmo and at Team Ninja that they're doing this, because Dead or Alive, more so than any fighting game, I think, the online has been so integral to the experience of playing it and the ability for it to build its own community, that to bring one out that doesn't have that online play, I'm not sure DOA can do that.
It's definitely a risk, but I mean, if the delay is only 3 months, I don't think it'll hurt them that much.
Yeah, I mean, it does from a PC standpoint. I think it diminishes the value of it a little more severely, though, because I mean, you look at tournaments, and DOA is still very tournament relevant, even though it's been quite some time since it was at EVO. But with fighting game tournaments, you don't really see people bringing their PCs there. Everyone who's playing DOA 5 last round at tournaments is going to be doing it on PS4 or Xbox One. And when you take the fact that the entire online community for the first 3 months is going to be consolidated to those platforms, apart from whatever stragglers you might have on 7th Gen, it seems like they might almost be taking the kind of standpoint with it that Yoshinori Ono took with handheld fighting games. They're not there to be an actual competitive centerpiece so much as they're there to give people a here and now sort of on-demand training mechanism, which has its own value in itself, absolutely. But that's the only role I can really see DOA 5 on PC taking at this point.
Yeah. My thinking for the delay, though, is actually might be a technical one. That they're actually planning to do PS4 and PC cross compatibility.
It's not unheard of as of yesterday.
Yeah.
The Xbox One might be the outlier there, just because you know, historically it's been more of a closed network than anything else. But you know, PlayStation Network and various online entities have been getting along fabulously of late, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if they get something like that going on the PC side of DOA. And it would explain, you know, them having to take some time to engineer that in.
Yeah. Because it might have been, you know, a last-minute decision for them, and they decided, okay, well, we could ship, you know, PC exclusive online code in there, and then have to pull it out and rejigger it, and maybe they're thinking, well, okay, let's just do it right the first time, like KOF 13 Steam Edition, and
yeah. Well, that's another game we should probably be giving a shout out to. King of Fighters 98 Ultimate Match, or Unlimited, no, Ultimate Match. Yeah, 98 is Unlimited Match, or is Ultimate Match, and 2002 is Unlimited Match. But 98 Ultimate Match Final Edition is coming to Steam. Only way to get it, I think, outside of buying an arcade cabinet with the Taito Type X2 hardware.
Yeah, which is effectively a PC anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, it makes sense that that's where it's going. I mean, it probably required almost no development whatsoever. But yeah, it'll be coming up here, I believe, in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So something that might have flown under the radar to a lot of people.
Yeah. I'll definitely be looking at picking that one up, because I do like the KOF games, even though I suck at them.
Well, KOF is just something that, even if you're not playing it super competitively, even if you're not that good at all, you can just sit down and get probably the most authentic arcade-style fighting game experience that you're going to get out of any genre currently going. And that I think is a big part of the KOF appeal, especially with 13 having come out and kind of gone down the road of the more combo happy style of fighting game. It's definitely not the down to earth, more technically oriented game that it once was.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's
I do
still
remember.
a fantastic time no matter where you're coming from.
Yeah. I do remember that 98, I think, was my favorite of the KOFs. So I'll be happy to get this one.
Yeah, it was the first Dream Match KOF.
Yeah.
Is the thing, and those were made to be not story driven like the entire series up to that point had been. It was just there to be a well-tuned, tight playing arcade fighting game, and it did that beautifully.
Yeah.
And so they can remake 98 as many times as they want, and I will just be happy to buy every single one of them. Same goes for 2002, for that matter. So, you want to kick us off on this next one?
This is the Lizard Squad and Anonymous kerfuffle that's going on, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't the next one on the list I have here, but yeah, you take that one away too. We'll improv.
Yeah. So apparently, if you're not familiar with Lizard Squad, they've been this hacker group that's been causing a lot of chaos in the gaming industry. A couple of months ago, they took down PSN, and on the same day, they also called in a bomb threat on Sony Online's president's plane that he was on at the time. And since then, they've been taking down Xbox Live and PSN pretty much on a weekly basis. So if you're ever trying to connect to Xbox Live and you can't, that's usually why. Anyway, apparently these guys have been looking for attention, and they seem to have gotten it now. Anonymous...
not the kind they want.
No, but this is probably not the kind of attention they want. They got Anonymous, who has basically said, okay, you guys are planning a big attack on Christmas Day. Do it, and you guys are going to be in some serious trouble.
Yeah. And, on the one hand, you've got a situation where if they actually go through with that, they're going to, break out the popcorn, because hacker-on-hacker violence could be some of the most entertaining stuff possible. You've seen the whole row they got into with the Ku Klux Klan recently.
Yeah.
And the Klan trying to be hackers and kind of failing miserably and hilariously.
Yeah.
And so this seems to be just the next chapter of that, and I won't be at all surprised if it turns out to be a thing. The only problem, well, two problems I run into with this. One, whenever you get hackers fighting amongst themselves, the general public does oftentimes tend to get dragged into it. And the other thing is with Anonymous in general, this is more of a case of people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, because if I remember correctly, it was a cell within Anonymous that was responsible for the big 2011 PlayStation Network hack. And so I don't know what's changed at this point, but it seems really ironic for them to be calling someone out for hacking gaming networks now.
Yeah. At the same time, Anonymous is a very amorphous kind of entity. There's hundreds of different cells in there, and not all of them get along.
That's true. And anyone can be anonymous just by claiming to be anonymous. So,
right.
I don't know. It struck me as a little bit strange, but at the very least, hopefully, it doesn't lead to anything stupid.
Yeah. Well, you got Microsoft who's after these guys, Sony's after these guys, FBI is apparently after these guys, and it looks like Anonymous is more than happy to help find them.
Yeah. Well, if Anonymous wants to serve these guys up to the authorities on a platter, then more power to them, honestly. Like I said, it just, in context, and granted that was 3 years ago, actually 3 years and change, but it was just the kind of thing that jumped out at me.
Yeah.
And hopefully this ends up in a situation where it's just all well that ends well.
Yeah.
But I could see it getting pretty ugly before it's over, unfortunately.
Yeah. We will wait and see what happens there.
Yeah. So the other one was that Zoe Quinn article that I linked you to.
Oh boy.
What did you think?
Wow. You know, I'm really not a huge fan of Zoe Quinn, but she's talking sense in this article here.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those who don't know, she wrote up this huge article that she posted. It's actually linked from my own Tumblr that I use to support this podcast, sp-patrick.tumblr.com. And yeah, she put the entire narrative behind Gamergate on all fronts, really, under the microscope, even if one is to assume that there are still any kind of redeeming or legitimate motives behind this whole thing. She addresses those too. I mean, I've made my own position on this clear back on the first episode, that if you really need a primer in the entire issue, just to address things that lie behind the harassment and everything that you hear about, and even then, it's not really that impressive of a claim, but she touches on it, and she disassembles the entire viewpoint with a precision that, even based on some stuff that I've written in the past, I envy. Because, I mean, she really took her time with this and made sure that there were no missteps or faulty sources or anything. I mean, she opened the whole thing up.
Yeah. Including her own, you know, her own initial involvement in it, you know. So,
Yeah.
you know, I don't think she's not claiming that she's innocent in all this. She's just pointing out everything that happened in a maybe a little bit slanted way, but certainly not as slanted as I've seen from other sources.
Yeah. Well, you know, my entire stance on Gamergate is that even if there were legitimate claims in there, that it's really just, it's been so poisoned by the threats and the rhetoric, and you know, that kind of took over it from the onset. It didn't have a whole ton of a case to begin with, because if you want to get right down to the heart of the matter, what even the more benign influences behind Gamergate are calling for is a return to what I think was kind of the boring days of game journalism, where unless you were working at one of the absolute top of the top sites, you were pretty much just a nameless face trying to write about video games in a way where no one could even remotely declare that a single word you were saying had any bias whatsoever. No personality, no anything except dry analysis, and I really don't want to see the gaming media have to go back to that, because I mean, I remember starting out, like even just before, even after the whole time that we were at Game Addicts Network, which I think was, in hindsight now, is kind of a precursor to the gaming media that we have now, which is in a pretty good place, because we were actually showing our personalities. We were putting our own kind of personality and our own take on things, our own worldview on everything that we wrote. And once we got out of that, like when I first got on at SmashPad, back when it was called Inside Gamer Online, one of the first things that they were telling me, don't even reference yourself, don't use the word I or me at all. And, you know, it still kind of lingers in my writing style since then, but I'm also a lot less of a fan of my own writing since I got that piece of advice, because I feel like it turned me into one of those nameless faces that that was just telling you about rather than telling you about my experience with the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost feel like sometimes I'm writing Wikipedia articles rather than, I don't know, this is kind of a sore spot for me. Another piece of advice I got was something along the lines of, don't forget when you're writing these reviews, you're not a gamer, you're a critic. And I'm just thinking, well, who the fuck wants to listen to a critic?
Yeah.
You know, when a gamer goes to a gaming website to read about games, they don't want to hear from a fucking critic. They want to hear from gamers. Just gamers who have happened to have gotten a hold of whatever game they're looking up and can give educated insights about it. And so that, the way the Gamergate movement kind of describes their ideas for the media, it really hits a sore spot with me, because I would I just would never want to be a part of the gaming media that took that form again.
Yeah. It's like you feel like we've moved past that. You know?
Yeah, now we're at a point now where we're actually able to display our personalities and encouraged to display our personalities, and that's really that's the real product that's being consumed here. Not just that we're here to inform people about the games that they're going to be playing imminently, but we want to be entertaining. We want people to enjoy what they're reading from us, and not just being impersonally and kind of emptily informed, you know?
Yeah.
And
it's like I don't want to go back to a time when, you know, what we're sitting here doing right now would have been considered taboo or against the organization.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. Like SmashPad Live would have been a career killer back in 2002, 2003 when we were at Game Addicts Network. Yeah. And even then, stuff we did, even though we were primarily still a reviews, previews, features site, there were times that we kind of, at least from what I felt, pushed the envelope. And now that sort of thing's become the norm, and it's actually fun to participate, you know, both as an end user and a viewer, listener, reader, and as someone creating the content for you guys week after week, day after day. And who the hell would want to go back to a gaming media that was so boring? It boggles the mind. Gaming is fun. It's enjoyable. So should the media that surrounds it.
Yeah. You know, I think the cat's out of the bag at this point. I don't think we're ever going to go back to that point, no matter how much they yell and scream and cry ethics.
They're kicking and screaming, but they really are kind of looking like the flat Earth society. I mean, even if you, especially when you add the threats and all the rhetoric, which you can't really separate from any other aspect of it at this point, it just kind of, it exemplifies just how backwards the whole idea is.
Yeah.
And it's like the harassment aspect of it just kind of lays it bare, because at the same time it's like a time capsule that you pulled out of message boards from around that same time period.
Yeah.
Not that they've gotten that much better, but it at least felt to me like the acrimony wasn't there as much anymore.
Yeah.
And Gamergate came along and they sure fucked that up.
Yeah. Well, Gamergate exists now, so we're gonna have to deal with the aftermath of that.
Yeah, I just worry that it's a mess that we're going to be cleaning up for not months but years to come, regardless of the outcome.
No,
It's
I
a
don't
shame
doubt that.
because there was a couple of weeks there where we weren't really hearing a whole lot of news from that whole thing. There wasn't a whole lot of talk of harassment or anything. It was kind of nice. I was starting to think that Gamergate had actually blown over. Nope.
Nope.
No such luck.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, if they think review scores or whatever coverage needs to be less biased, at least you can tell exactly where somebody's coming from the personality that they exude in everything that they write. I mean, there don't need to be any disclaimers. You just need to know who's writing it.
Yeah.
And reviews have, I mean, the funny thing about it is, reviews have never been objective by nature. They just can't. It's not possible.
Yeah. Well, there is actually a site, Objective Reviews, which basically all it does is tells you exactly what the game is about, how many features it has, and that's it. That's an objective review.
It's a fucking Wikipedia article.
That's basically what it boils down to.
That is Gamergate's proposed future for the gaming media. Go to Wikipedia and just read about a game, or objective reviews, as you just pointed out. That's what they want us to be.
Yeah.
They don't want the analysis or the commentary or, even the podcasts. They just seem to want to strip all the personality and all the character out of the gaming media that it took so long to establish.
Yeah.
And if they really wanted to fight for ethics in gaming journalism, and I've said this before, where the fuck were they in 2007 when Jeff Gerstmann was fired from GameSpot for not giving Kane and Lynch Dead Men the review score that IDOS bought and paid for?
Yeah.
That's the beginning and the end of it right there.
Yeah.
That's never been addressed by any outlet.
Yeah.
It just kind of got swept under the rug, and we kept on keeping on. And, where were they then? There was outrage back then, but it wasn't sustained outrage.
No, it blew over in a few weeks, and then Giant Bomb showed up, and everybody who was a fan of Jeff moved over there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really don't know. What's different now?
Really? I don't really think there is anything different. I think this is just a splinter group who really believes that it's the establishment, the entity, the organization that is important in gaming media, and the people behind it are just cogs in a machine and aren't really that important. And I don't think that's really going to hold much water anymore.
Yeah, it's people who really deeply have a strong need to be angry about something. That's what I take out of all this.
Yeah.
And those people exist. They're, it's like they can't function without an enemy or some kind of antagonizing factor in their lives, and they just need something to lash out at, or things are just too boring for them, or they can't get motivated.
Yeah.
But anyway, enough of that. Read Zoe Quinn's column because it was really good. Again, actually, well, I've got the link to it on my own Tumblr, SP-Patrick, and so you might have to scroll down a little bit, but it's there. It's a really good read, and she deconstructs the whole argument and one website in particular beautifully.
Yeah.
But enough of the controversy, the acrimony in the gaming community. We had a couple of pretty big shows here in the last couple days, and it all kind of started Friday night with the Game Awards, and there were a lot of reveals, but I think there was one presentation that kind of stole the show, and that was Nintendo.
Yeah. You know, anybody who's looking to count Nintendo out, no. They've got some solid stuff coming.
Yeah, it was also supposed to be framed as just a Wii U Zelda presentation, and they showed the game off, and it looks magnificent. And I can't wait to get my hands on it. I'm probably more excited about this than I have any console Zelda post Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
But then they just started kind of going off, and suddenly we're going to be playing Star Fox before we're playing Zelda, which, by the way, is also coming in 2015.
Yeah.
And we're going to be playing Majora's Mask 3D even before we're playing Star Fox. And so that's kind of huge.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, has Miyamoto slept in the past 3 months? Because they're going to get that game done by by summer 2015. Considering the state that we saw it in at E3, they must have just been constantly cranking on it.
Yeah, if it's the same kind of old school game design that gave us Star Fox 64, I don't think it's going to need a 2-year development cycle necessarily. You know, Nintendo, they can rely so heavily on their gameplay mechanics that you don't really need to pour millions and millions of dollars and years of development time into the development cycle. You can kind of go in, and it's obviously there's some time before it's even presented, even in the case of Star Fox. But once you get going, I mean, you just take a really solid set of gameplay mechanics and you build on them.
Yeah.
And you continue building on them, and that's the core of the game. That simple look and feel is what everything is built around. And if you take it from that angle, you don't have to lock yourself in a studio for 2 years to make Nintendo games, and they're still going to come out really good.
Yeah. Yeah. I would argue that Nintendo doesn't actually do AAA.
Not in the sense that you think of it.
Yeah.
If anything, I think that theirs is the model for AAA once the whole big budget mass market thing kind of implodes.
Yeah.
Because they make really good games on reasonable budgets, just from smart and engaging gameplay. Polygon with their Captain Toad review used Nintendo as a verb for that very thing.
Yeah.
And they say that Captain Toad Nintendo's as hard as it possibly can, and that's that's what they do there. And it's also the same thing that kind of fuels the indie scene, and that really is what I'm. It doesn't center on any specific genre or any specific franchise or anything like that. It's a very simple idea that can spread to game after game after game, and if this comes out the way it's looking to come out, Nintendo are going to look like geniuses for staying the course, through some not so good years there. Now they're back and they're getting used to the sight of black ink again, and that was when they didn't really have a whole lot to build around. Then they had that 1 week where they launched Amiibo and Pokemon and Smash Brothers, and suddenly they're the talk of the industry. And now they have this announcement where Majora's Mask, Star Fox, The Legend of Zelda, all of it's going to be in 2015. They're taking all of these, I don't want to say little victories, but just kind of things that make people say, hell yes, Nintendo. And they're starting to weave those together into rather huge victories, and it's kind of easy to feel a little bit foolish for doubting what was going to happen to the Wii U, even as recently as a month or two ago. We've seen this movie before,
Yeah. Yeah. We should at least talk a little bit about that Zelda gameplay, because I think there's a few things in there that really are worth mentioning. Some of them are kind of little things, like the use of the Wii U gamepad in an actual smart and intelligent way.
Yeah.
Having that map, setting waypoints that will actually also show up on your gameplay screen by the looks of it. So that was nice. Yeah, and the horseback riding, where you don't actually have to, babysit the horse.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the frustrating things about past Zelda games too, was Epona just kind of running into
everything
and nothing, and just kind of being there at the controller's beck and call.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether it made sense. Now they're adding logic to that. That's going to go a long way, especially in getting from place to place quickly.
Yeah, especially in a game that's
things that you're apparently going to have to do during the trip.
Yeah, particularly in a game that's really, meant to evoke that open world, that that classic sense of mystery that the original Zelda had.
Oh, yeah.
I was watching that trailer, and I was getting goosebumps thinking back to the original Legend of Zelda, the gold cartridge I put in my NES, and had no idea where I was going, but I didn't care.
Because it was just so damn fun to play, and no matter where you went, you were going to end up somewhere.
Yeah.
And another thing I wanted to point out was the use of the gamepad. It really seems like the further evolution of those old days, just sitting, in your basement playing The Legend of Zelda and having those big paper maps in front of you, whether you drew them or you pulled them out of a Nintendo Power magazine. You always had those maps that you were keeping to kind of keep yourself on track.
Yeah.
And now, instead of a book or a notebook or a fold-out map, you have the Wii U gamepad, and it's just kind of taking on that role. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
And it's really going to make the experience of that game so reminiscent of the first game, which everything they're doing about it seems to be zeroing in on that. They are they are tapping into the original Legend of Zelda as hard as they possibly can.
Yeah.
And I love them for it. This is going... I mean, I've never been big on 3D Zelda, but this could very easily be the game that changes that. Skyward Sword was a swing and a near miss. I enjoyed it quite a bit, but I didn't really see it through to the end, partly because there were other games coming out around that time that I wanted to play, but also just because there was nothing in there that hooked me. It's like, oh my god, I have to play this through to the end. I don't think that's going to be a problem here.
No. The recent Zelda games have been really formulaic, and this one here looks like it's throwing that formula out the window.
All while also still keeping it intact, I think, because I think once you get to those levels, once you get to those dungeons, I think it's going to feel awfully familiar, and in a very good way.
Yeah, we want those Zelda dungeons where you go in, you have one major puzzle to solve, to get, gotta find that map, and then beat the boss, get out, grab your heart container,
get the item.
Yeah, get the item, head out.
It's always about the item.
Yeah, and go find the next one.
Not just because the item's going to get you to the next place, but because you want to use it, you want to see what it does.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that Zelda hasn't really done in a while, in my opinion, is that sense of, wow, what am I going to get here? What's it going to do?
Yeah.
And hopefully they can tap into that. I mean, obviously you're going to have your standbys there. I don't think you can do a Zelda game without those, but they need to introduce a lot of new stuff, like A Link to the Past did.
Yeah.
And then just really capture that feel of anticipation. I don't know if I'm alone in that. When I was playing those old Zelda games back in the day, I didn't really care about the boss fight at the end. I didn't really care about the heart container, even though that was always a really good perk. I wanted that item. I wanted that weapon or whatever they were going to give me. I wanted to see what it was going to do, what new places it was going to let me explore, and that part has never really been gone. But kind of wondering about whatever it is you're going to get does has kind of been lost in the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
That's kind of disappointing. Hopefully they can get back into that, because that was addiction for me.
Because I still remember in Link to the Past where one of those items would actually let you bypass an entire puzzle if you played the dungeons out of order.
Oh, yeah, there
were a few instances in that game where you could do that.
Yeah. I mean, that's what happens with the open world. It's going to be non-linear by nature.
Yeah.
The original game did kind of half-heartedly try to guide you in a certain direction by numbering the dungeons.
Yeah.
But I know people, myself included, who tried to do playthroughs of the game almost Mega Man style just to see if we could.
Yeah. And for the most part, you can.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be taking hella damage in some of those dungeons if you do it that way, but you're still going to have a blast trying and seeing what you can discover. And that's what they need to bring back to the franchise, I think, more than anything.
Yeah. Well, from what we're seeing so far, I think they're on the right track.
Oh, I have all the faith in the world in Eiji Aonuma now. I just want this game. If I could just fast forward the next year and get my hands on this game, I would be completely happy. And probably completely missing, because yeah. So okay, I think that knocks out all of the preliminary notes, if that's what you even want to call them. that was a show and a half for some weeks.
Yeah.
But now this is the PlayStation Experience special, so I guess we should probably start talking about PlayStation Experience at some point.
Yeah.
But first off, what were your expectations going into the show, would you say?
Well, I was kind of hoping to at least, hear a little bit about Morpheus on the in the keynote, but we didn't. I'm not really too surprised, but it would have been nice to have at least had some kind of mention, other than, okay, yeah, it's going to be on the floor. You guys can check it out. But besides that, it's not really like that keynote was lacking for content. I mean, it was almost 2 hours.
No, it was 2.5 hours, and it was really the blueprint for what any E3 presentation should be. And I'm hoping everyone pays attention. We'll find out in June.
Yeah.
But really, not only did I think it was that Morpheus was going to be more prominent, I thought that was the entire reason they were trying to call the entire community out to Vegas.
No.
The last time they did anything like this, they called the entire gaming media out to New York and unveiled the PS4. And I thought this was going to be that kind of show, and I'm really I still have high hopes for Project Morpheus, but if it was 85% complete a few months ago, I think it was, and it's getting close to completion now, it has to be, and they're just kind of saying, yeah, we got a show, come check it out. I've been thinking about this. It doesn't really seem like the biggest vote of confidence to me. Does it to you?
No, but at the same time, I got to figure with the amount of other stuff they had there, trying to show Morpheus stuff on 2D screens probably wouldn't have played very well.
Game after game, yeah. No, like I said, I mean, apart from that one item, it was the blueprint for what an E3 show should be, without question. I did not walk away from that disappointed by any stretch of the imagination. I just hope that everyone was taking notes that this is how you do an E3 presentation, a press conference, keynote, show, whatever you want to call it, whenever you want to hold it. It's gamers that turn out for these, and it's what Sony did that gamers want to see.
Yeah.
And so hopefully that kind of...
Yeah, Sony was very clear about who that show was for. That was one thing.
Just like at E3, just like the PS4 unveiling, they had their priorities straight.
Yeah. They didn't talk once about TV or media or anything like that. It was entirely games.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised that we didn't hear anything about PlayStation View, but it really would have been out of tune with the rest of their show if they had. So I'm sure there'll be some talk about it on the show floor. Somebody will.
Yeah,
say,
there'll probably be some articles
doing.
coming up today and all that, and that stuff.
Yeah, we were actually kind of reluctant to even do the show today, just because PlayStation Experience is still going on in Las Vegas as we speak. I mean, for all we know, there could be megatons going on down there that we don't know about because we're just sitting here chatting on PlayStation Network. But hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully, if anything big comes along, we're not going to miss it ourselves.
Yeah.
But
we'll certainly talk about it next week if anything big does drop.
But by the same token, I figure with everything that was at the keynote yesterday, if there was anything else in the pipeline for today, we would have ended up with a 3-hour show once we finally did it. And so, so that's kind of where our expectations were. Should we start with Uncharted?
Sure, you may as well. We'll
now,
start with Uncharted because they started with Uncharted. That was an interesting way to lead off the show.
Yeah, you'd think that something like that would be would be saved for toward the end, but they came out swinging. And you know, I'm not an Uncharted guy. I've never actually played one of them. The whole single-player action thing, for me, has to come in a very specific form, preferably delivered by Hideki Kamiya. But I'm just being honest. But Uncharted 4 impressed me. I mean, it was still a little too, I guess you could say, organic for my tastes. I saw there was another game writer that was on Facebook or on Twitter. I can't remember who it was offhand, but said that Uncharted 4 would probably be a lot better if it had turn-based combat, and I was like, hell yes, it would. But
Yeah.
for what it was very impressive, and I don't know, it actually got my attention. I might have to give this game a look and give this whole series a look and see what it's really about.
Yeah.
One of these times when I want something new to play.
Yeah. And you can pick up the
Because,
Uncharted collection for $20 now. So I think it's definitely worth checking out if you're ever.
Have to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought there were points where the artificial intelligence wasn't all that intelligent.
No, they were a little gun happy, weren't they?
Yeah, I was gonna say I could see myself playing through this game simply by, depending on the level of realism at least, just kind of getting their attention, hiding behind some rocks, and then just waiting for them to empty their guns into said rock, because they were really aggressive with, on the demo. It's like they have something against their own bullets. I don't know.
Yeah. Ooh, hey, trophy. Nice.
But, so then they did, after Uncharted, they decided to do a little bit of trolling and...
Oh.
Well, I'll say it was a pretty strong Capcom announcement. Ultra Street Fighter 4 going next gen. Of course, they lampshaded it really well. I think it was Adam Boyes saying, "What, you expected some other Street Fighter game here?"
Yeah. Moving right along.
But I think this was kind of like the worst kept secret in the fighting genre, because Mad Catz have their TE2 fight sticks, and there was an Ultra Street Fighter 4 model that's been, I think was on pre-order, but it's been unveiled for a while at the very least. And they've been kind of coy about it. Oh, it doesn't mean anything. Obviously it means something, and it was, if anything, it was kind of weird that they were trying to deny it.
Yeah.
But it's good to know that that Ultra Street Fighter 4 is heading to next-gen platforms, because as the transition furthers, we're going to be seeing a lot of tournaments start making the same move to the next-gen hardware. We've already got Xbox Ones, obviously, because of Killer Instinct. Another fantastic next-gen fighting game. And Street Fighter 4, for better or worse, is a game that we're going to be playing for a very long time. And, you know, it's good to see that Capcom recognizes that and is taking the steps to see that it will be supporting the new hardware moving forward.
Yeah. I do wonder if they're going to be doing any kind of improvements to it visually for the PS4. But I imagine if they didn't bother doing it for the PC, they're probably not going to put too much effort into it there either.
And it's still a very good looking game anyway. That's probably the last thing you could begrudge it. But you know, more importantly, the initial current generation release of Ultra Street Fighter 4 was not without its problems. I mean, it is probably the perfection of Street Fighter 4 from a balance standpoint, but my God, do they have some bugs they need to get out of it. Hopefully, those will all be fixed for the disc version that they ship, and hopefully there won't be the need for a patch once it gets here.
Yeah.
Because I think that would be one of the best things they could do is just have a, fully complete fixed version of Ultra Street Fighter 4 on the disc, day one, no patch.
Yeah.
I think that's something that the tournament organizers would really appreciate and actually, quite frankly, need from Capcom at this point.
Yeah. Because, yeah, well, I don't know about the 360 version of the game, but the PC version's online play was pretty much broken from the start. So that was...
It's the game, and there are even glitches that affect actual gameplay rather than just the online component.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that do not work the way they're supposed to, and are almost reminiscent of Super Turbo in some of the wrong ways, where you might be getting crossed up and you'll throw a poke in the entirely wrong direction, even though going by the logic of the game and how the game itself thinks, it should have turned your character around by that point.
Yeah.
That kind of glitch, and they are not few. So, but the great thing about it is Capcom knows about them. They've been patching them over time, and from what I understand, it's still an ongoing process, and hopefully it's a complete process by the time the next-gen version comes out, because once again, I think that would be a great selling point even to people who already have the current gen game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably a game I would end up buying again anyway.
Yeah, I'd get it just to have it on the next gen system. I'm not a huge Street Fighter 4 fan. I think there are some design decisions that really detract from its quality, not as a fighting game so much, but as a Street Fighter game. And I'm not going to mince words here. It is the game that kind of estranged me from the fighting game community. But all that being said, I can still recognize it as a quality product and see a next-gen version of it as something that would be essential for me to have. And besides that, even in spite of everything, I still want to support Ono.
Yeah.
He's a good guy and probably the best ambassador for the fighting game, for Street Fighter in particular, that Capcom could have asked for. So, so for that reason as well, I would want to pick up Ultra Street Fighter 4 for the next-gen platforms. But then there's that other game that they kind of hung a lampshade on.
Maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally. I think somebody just hit the publish button a little bit too quickly.
Yeah, I think Katsuhiro Harada said it best on Twitter. Oops.
Yeah.
Which is going to go in the list of my all-time favorite tweets, because it says so much while saying so little.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, let's bogart our biggest announcement of the show. That seems like a great thing to do. Oops.
The same thing happened to him with Tekken 7, so he definitely knows how it feels.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't think it derailed the hype train any.
No, they used it as had a good laugh at it. And they got back to it a little later on in the show, so it wasn't a huge derailment.
Yeah, and from what we've seen of it, it looks fantastic. I'm not sure if it... I mean, I have the same misgivings about it as were voiced by Capcom's Tomoaki Ayano, when he made an announcement at one point that he couldn't see Street Fighter V happening until 2018.
Yeah.
I'm right there with him. I think the great thing about the Street Fighter franchise is that once a game gets finalized, it gets time to breathe. It gets time to establish itself as the competitive centerpiece and really make some distance between itself and whatever comes next. Street Fighter V is not going to get that benefit, and it kind of shows just by looking at the trailer, the teaser, and the actual gameplay footage that they showed at the Sony show proper. It looks, it's got a lot of different mechanics going on that you can analyze for days from the trailer. But at the same time, it seems like it's going to be making some of the same design decisions as did Street Fighter IV, and I just personally really hope that there are some that get left behind.
Yeah.
Because, I'm hoping that Street Fighter V is to Street Fighter IV as Street Fighter Alpha is to Street Fighter II. That's the best case scenario, I think.
Yeah. Well, they didn't say at all when we could expect Street Fighter V, so it may very well be 2017, 2018 before we see it.
I don't know. When I think about it, I kind of frame it in the same context as Street Fighter IV.
Yeah.
Because the unveiling really reminded me quite a bit of the Street Fighter IV trailer, with only it had actual gameplay footage thrown in there for good measure.
Yeah.
Whereas Street Fighter IV was just a heavily stylized cutscene. But if we're going to draw a timetable from that, then I think we're looking at probably, like, I don't want to get my whole Miss Cleo thing on at this point, but I would say all signs point to spring of 2016 console launch.
Yeah.
With an arcade version hitting kind of toward the end of 2015.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Just going to the same timetable applied to Street Fighter IV.
Yeah.
That seems consistent. This time next year, I think we're going to see. I think throughout the summer we're going to see load tests, and then a console release or an arcade release proper around September, October, and then finally a console release closer to March, April 2016. But that's not specific at all. I'm just.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. I mean, I doubt that they would announce a game right now that was actually 3 years away. That would make no sense.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of it in terms of EVOs, honestly. Yeah. How many EVOs is Ultra Street Fighter 4 going to have as the main event? And I think that's where we're going to. At least 2, yeah. But I think that's going to be the new measure of distance as far as fighting game sequels. At least it makes sense to me. But yeah, at the very least, it looks really good, and
yeah, I'm digging the new art style at least.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna. I don't want to sit here and just kind of put all the mechanics that were on display under a microscope, because there are people who are more deeply entrenched in the fighting game community now that can do that and have been at length.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong; it makes for really good reads. I just don't want to be the one to be taking that job on myself. It looks like a really solid game. It just, My only concern is that it also looks a hell of a lot like Street Fighter 4,
Yeah.
like uncomfortably so. But I hope I'm wrong about that. I hope that's just the art style talking to me, and it's really going to feel like its own game.
Yeah.
And that's what it needs to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we start seeing low test footage or arcade match footage coming along that really looks like it's cut, well, not just cut from the exact same cloth as Street Fighter 4, but actually a part of the same outfit. I would be deeply disappointed if that were the case.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, from the teaser trailer that you saw there, they were definitely trying to evoke a Street Fighter 2 vibe, going, you know, so far as, you know, throwing up the facade of the building from World Warrior and Champion Edition, Hyper Fighting, etc.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, and then also noticed they got Moment 37 in there, which I never get tired of seeing.
Yeah.
That's just, like, honestly, Third Strike is, if not my favorite Street Fighter game, then easily one of my top 3. But that's the moment that made Street Fighter 3 Third Strike.
Yeah.
It was a side event at pretty much every major tournament until Moment 37 happened, and then the entire fighting game community kind of collectively dropped its jaw and realized, hey, we got to get good at this. We got to start playing this. This game is interesting and different and really just great on a technical level that nothing else going on right now really touches. And there were I think there were a couple of Evos there, at least one where Third Strike got a better turnout than Marvel.
Yeah.
Which, you know, if you think about that today, would be unheard of. But Moment 37 did that for the game.
Yeah.
And so they invoked that too in the Street Fighter V trailer. So I'm hoping that's a sign that, yeah, they know that Street Fighter V has to have its own identity, and it can't just bring the same things to the table that Street Fighter 4 did.
Right.
Or else it's going to be pretty short-lived.
Yeah.
But the main bullet point behind Street Fighter V was that Capcom and Sony are apparently so tight now that Sony sent staff to Capcom to help them make Street Fighter V, and as a result of that, Street Fighter V is only ever going to be a PS4 game.
Yeah. And a PC game.
That's a little huge.
Yeah.
So,
also a PC game, but you know, that's a whole other story.
We talked about the PC issue during the Dead or Alive segment. I think it's great that PCs are getting fighting games. I just, from a logistical standpoint and from a community standpoint, I don't really see it being a huge factor.
But at the same time, if the PC version of the game is balanced the exact same way, plays the same way, doesn't doesn't require you to learn any new mechanics, someone who doesn't bring their PC over can easily just sit down at the console version and still pick it up right away. It's not
exactly.
You know, we're not
like
at the point anymore where we're at the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo where each version was radically different.
Yeah, there were certain little quirks that you had to be aware of from version to version. Yeah, we're not there, thankfully, because I don't really miss those days, or at least those elements of those days. But that just kind of supports like I was saying earlier, and like Ono has said in the past, about handheld fighting games, they're really not there to take over the competitive circle. They're just kind of there to be an extra resource, a training mechanism, a practice mechanism to help you improve your skills as a player, more so than being there for actual competitive purposes. And that's fine. I mean, we need all of those we can get. So I'm happy to see all the support that the PC is getting from the fighting genre. And when you add the cross-platform play between PS4 and PC, that's going to be really good from a community standpoint as well.
Yeah. And, you know, on a technical standpoint, I'm wondering how they're even going to manage that. The only easy way that I see them to be able to do that would be to, you know, integrate Steamworks, you know, like they did with Portal 2, because that one also had crossplay.
Yeah. I'm just glad I'm the one who doesn't have to come up with the way to make that work.
Yeah.
But Steamworks does seem kind of like the silver bullet for that. It checks all the boxes. All that we're waiting on there is kind of an official announcement. At the very least, we know it's going to be games for Windows Live this time, and
no, thank God.
we can all be thankful for that.
Yeah. I'm sure glad that died a horrible death.
Yeah, it was gruesome, but it had to be done.
Yeah. And nobody misses it. I really don't miss trying to sign into my game and then not being able to, and then losing my save file for no apparent reason. That was great.
Yeah.
Dirt 3.
And I just thought it felt... See, I didn't have any of the headaches with it. I just thought it felt creepy and unnatural to have to sign into Xbox Live from my PC.
Yeah, for me, the sign-in didn't really bother me. It was more the fact it just didn't work properly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I played a total of 2 games that used games for Windows Live, so I didn't really encounter any problems like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, at the keynote, they also had a really good segment on indie games.
Yeah, they showed off quite a few of them.
Yeah, for me, I mean, that kind of jumbles together in a weird retro mishmash that I don't still recall what I took from it necessarily. I just remember that it put a smile on my face, and when each of these games come out, I'm sure I'll be ponying up the $10–15, whatever they're asking for them, because it's right in the strike zone of, and I know I keep harping on this, but when the system was first unveiled and Mark Cerny was talking about the joy of play and the elegant simplicity of basic gaming mechanics, again, these games seem to be checking all the boxes, and I'm happy to see it.
Yeah. Super Time Force Ultra with Shuhei Yoshida as a playable character. I mean, that's just dumb enough that you have to. You just have to love it.
Kratos as a boss.
Yeah.
Was that the same game? Yeah, I think it was.
So. I think it was.
So, oh man.
And I usually hate, you know, console-specific tie-ins, but those were just dumb enough to be, you know, amusing.
No, I will play as Shu Yoshida in Super Time Force Ultra.
Yeah.
That's just one. It's a cool little drop-in that I can definitely get behind.
Yeah. And we also saw an interesting dungeon crawler called Enter the Gungeon, which looked pretty freaking fun.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Kratos better be an absolute bastard of a boss too.
Yeah.
Just had to say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, their indie catalog looks super strong, but you know, when is it ever not?
Yeah. I mean, Supergiant confirmed Bastion going to PS4, Another step in their quest to have Bastion on everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the more platforms we can get Bastion out on, the better. It's a great game. Anyone who hasn't experienced yet, go out and buy it. Support Supergiant. Buy Transistor if you haven't got it already. They're just making some great stuff over there. They really seem to have the potential of like a new Atlas in their infancy.
Yeah.
And I mean, anytime I play their games, I feel the need to heap praise on them like that, because it's just, they seem to be very much in tune with the things that make a game good.
Yeah. They kind of remind me a lot of Rare in the early days.
You know, you're right. Maybe a cross of Rare and Atlas, as weird and awesome as that sounds. That's really where they're at.
Yeah. They understand mechanics. They understand that you don't need super fancy, engines or super fancy graphics to convey a point in their games with, very little technical flash. Just, they evoke something that a lot of games just don't.
Yeah. And they still make the narrative work within that framework.
Yeah.
It's brilliant, really.
Yeah.
We need more studios doing stuff like that, because it's really what makes video games great.
Yeah.
But yeah, indie games, I've already indulged in many of them on the PS4. I'm sure I'm going to just continue quietly heaping a mountain of them on my system.
Yeah.
And I have absolutely no problem with that whatsoever.
Yeah.
Also, rumors of the PlayStation Vita's demise have been greatly exaggerated.
Yeah, PS Vita, still a thing.
Also by association, PlayStation TV.
Yeah.
And I just did a write-up on that as a hardware review and over at SmashPad.com, so go and check that out if you're at all curious about the PlayStation TV and whether it's a console for you. But really, and this kind of ties in with the indie game stuff too, but yeah, they've been quietly building a mass of games to just pile onto the PlayStation Vita and get this console going again, because it's a really good platform and not enough people are really aware of that. But it's kind of like the handheld equivalent of the Wii U. I was talking to Dan Ribble one time, and he pointed out that the Wii U takes a lot of shit from people, but I don't know a single person who has one and doesn't love it.
Yeah.
And the PlayStation Vita is the exact same thing for handhelds. If you have one, you're happy because it's got a ton of great games on it. It's, after this year, apparently, after this press conference, there's a whole lot more coming to it. And, there's definitely a future to look forward to.
Yeah. Yeah. What's also interesting is PS3 is getting some love as well.
Yeah, and this also ties into the PlayStation Vita thing, because Suikoden 1 and 2, the original's already been on the PlayStation Network as a PS1 Classic for some time, but for some reason they never patched in the Vita compatibility. And now we know that's coming.
Yeah.
As well as Suikoden 2 is going to be arriving on the PlayStation Network Tuesday, as it so turns out. And that's going to have the Vita compatibility as well. So I have my problems with the first two Suikoden games. I just didn't think the battle systems were fleshed out enough, but these are at the very least, they're two very influential and very respected JRPGs that if you haven't experienced yet, you know, pick them up for peanuts compared to what you'll find them on eBay for.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're short, but you'll find something in them that you'll enjoy.
Yeah. Well, relatively short. I mean, they are RPGs, so you're looking at least 20 hours per. But
not for the first one.
Really?
The first one you might get 12 to 15 out of if you're lucky. It's a shorty, but yeah, the second game you can get 25, 30 hours out of, and you're not going to spend that time level grinding. That is one thing I've always loved about the series is you level at a decent enough clip that even if, on the off chance you do find yourself level grinding, you're only going to be doing it for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because the way the levels are balanced, it doesn't demand a whole lot of time from you.
Yeah, which is a good thing, because there's nothing like getting near a boss and then realizing you have to spend another half an hour to an hour just to get yourself to a point where you can even compete with them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not Suikoden, thankfully.
Yeah.
And more than that, I'm just always happy to see, you know, something come along, a release or re-release that that just gives the eBay profiteers what for and sees them take it in the pooper. So I fully expect these two games to depreciate in value reasonably quickly now that, especially Suikoden 2, it is no longer the only way to experience this game. So I don't know, I anticipate a $5.99 price tag for it, but it wouldn't be out of the question to see them hit it with the $9.99 because it's still a very sharp markdown from what it's been getting.
Yeah. You want to talk about the other remake?
Yeah, Yakuza 5.
I
was kind of surprised that it took this long because it seemed like the series was starting to get a little bit of a foothold here in North America. When 3 came out, it was done with a sort of, well, not a sort of, a great deal of caution from Sega, but they didn't seem to have any second thoughts about releasing Yakuza 4. And so I thought it was smooth sailing for the series, but now we apparently had to sweat it out before we found out that Yakuza 5 was coming. And I gotta say, I've got a little bit of a beef with how they're carrying it out because it's going to be digital only.
Yeah.
If you want hard copy, you're importing the Japanese version, which, being in the genre that it's in, you really don't want to do.
No. Unless you're very fluent in Japanese and, you know.
Yeah. I mean, this is, for those who don't know, Yakuza is basically what became of the Shenmue franchise. It's functionally, I would say, identical, and it has no storyline connections, but it's an ongoing storyline unto itself. And the one feature that I can definitely say that it has over Suikoden, or not Suikoden, I'm still stuck on that, over Shenmue, is that the story is in fact ongoing. We're still getting games in the series. This has been kind of a point of contention for me because I think if more people supported the Yakuza franchise, Sega would be a lot more receptive to the suggestion that they need to finally make Shenmue 3.
Yeah.
But if you're the least bit curious about it, I would say just go find a PS3 copy of Yakuza 3. Just go to GameStop, go to Best Buy, wherever you can get games. Find a copy of Yakuza 3. It should be on the cheap by now. It has a primer for the series, so if you want to understand what happened in the first two games, you can.
Yeah.
Once you get started in it, you will realize how much like Shenmue it is, and why I'm saying that it's basically what became of that franchise.
Yeah. And if you can't find a copy, you can also get it on the PSN now.
Yep. I think Yakuza 4 is actually... I'm not sure if it's there now or if they're holding it back till Tuesday, but it's on there too. I'm not sure about any price points. I think I just saw it in passing when I was addressing our next item. But yeah, look into it if you like the Shenmue games and you want more of that. You know, throw Sega some love, because they're giving you a way to show your appreciation for that genre, for that kind of game. And I will personally attest to the Yakuza series being fantastic. I'm hoping they also, sooner than later, confirm Yakuza Ishin for the PS4, which was actually a launch title over in Japan. But I guess one game at a time.
Yeah. Well, in this case, 2 at a time. We got Yakuza 3 and Dead Souls.
Yeah. So, PlayStation Experience is kind of... It's born out of the 20th anniversary of the PlayStation brand, and different companies have been celebrating that in different ways. EA thought that it would be great to put together a really well-made video highlighting their PlayStation years, and then proceeding to hand over 3 free games. One for the PS3, one for the PlayStation Vita, and one for the PS4. And, it's only for this weekend, so if you haven't gotten them yet, sign into your PSN account on your computer, or get there on your respective devices and get those games. You've got, for the PS3, you've got Mirror's Edge, which is, I would say, the best of the lot.
Yeah.
For the PlayStation 4, you've got
Plants vs.
Zombies, Garden Warfare.
Yeah.
What was the Vita game?
Need for Speed Most Wanted.
Oh yeah. So a little bit of everything, really, as far as spreading out the diversity among 3 games. And once again, I guess at midnight tonight, the freebies will go away, but get them while you can, because there's a good deal of quality there.
Yeah.
And
just be aware of the PlayStation error codes. Yes. So, trying to download these, this was the first time that I've actually ever gotten the PlayStation 4 download to PS4 function on the website to actually work. And
which in and of itself is telling.
Yeah. Then when it did work, all I got was a corrupted download. So that was really nice. That was, that was 14 gigs that I had to then delete and then re-download.
And I just want to add to that. I've been there with PSN. Back when I was doing the review for Persona 4 Arena Ultimax.
Yeah.
That was a 12 gig download that I had to do a do-over on, because the first time I downloaded it was corrupted.
Yeah.
So I feel your pain on that.
What really irritates me, though, is the way you have to find out about this. All you get is just an obtuse error code, which you then have to go to online, look up, and find the Sony support article, which tells you what it is, and then you have to basically, delete the file and re-download it. There's no way to, recheck the file and just re-download the parts that might be bad. No, you got to redo the whole darn thing.
And heaven forbid they should automate the process.
Yeah, what is this? An Xbox we're talking about here?
Yeah. What is it? It's only 2014. What are we asking for that they should be able to sniff these things out on their own?
Yeah. It's like it's just those little. It's just those little user experience things that tend to bother me about the PlayStation platform.
Yeah. while admitting that, you know, even though I play everything, I would identify myself as a PlayStation guy with a gun to my head. That does kind of chat my ass as well, because I guess being a PlayStation guy first and foremost, you know, I get all my third-party games for the PlayStation system usually. Not as a hard and fast rule, obviously, because of Diablo 3, but you know, I usually lean toward the PlayStation option, and sometimes that bites me in the ass for stuff exactly like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, with game downloads and game sizes reaching the kind of ridiculous sizes they're getting to, this is something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not an elective fix. This needs to happen.
Yeah. Let's just hope that Sony can manage to start making improvements in this area, because,
Yeah.
you know.
But, you know, with that in mind, I will say none of that is EA's fault. And
No, not blaming EA for this.
Yeah, good guy EA giving us free games, hell yeah. We definitely thank him for that.
Yeah.
Despite the problems that the PSN has led to.
Yeah.
So, while it wasn't the finale, there was one news bit that kind of, I guess you could say it stood above the rest at the keynote.
Yeah, you mean Square Enix trolling everybody?
Well, except me, because I love what they're doing. Because, well, you know me, I think that fanboy tears are delicious, and I definitely got a good serving of them yesterday. So Final Fantasy VII re-release is a thing, is coming to the PS4. Dirty port of the PC version.
Yeah.
Have fun, folks.
Yeah. Enjoy.
And no, I mean, I'll buy it, I'll support it. Even though I'm not a huge fan of Final Fantasy VII compared to some of their other output, I still think of it as a high point game in the Final Fantasy series, and I did enjoy recently going back and replaying it on Steam.
Yeah.
And so, and you know, luckily enough, that's the same version I'll be getting here on the PS4. But
Yeah, with the improved localization.
It is a great. Well, there were some changes in the PC version. It would be nice if they went through and redid the localization word for word. I'm not holding my breath, but even as it stands, based on the Steam the PC version, it's still one of the better examples of the JRPG genre, and one of the better examples of the Final Fantasy series, and deserves the support, even though it isn't in the form that a lot of people would have, well, not would have likely preferred, would have clearly preferred.
Yeah. At the same time, though, I think, you know, it's still a few months away, so I doubt they're just gonna, you know, sit on it for 3 months and not do anything to it. I think they'll probably do a little bit of cleaning up here and there.
You'd put it past them?
Yeah, I think they probably at least, you know, want to get the control inputs and all that stuff.
Somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, the PS4's got a good scaler, so you know, it wouldn't be too hard for them to do that.
So maybe they don't even need to do that.
Yeah.
Just sit back and let the hardware do it for them.
Yeah. You know, they got things like
I guess.
button inputs and all that they would need to change.
Yeah. That's not really a whole ton of change.
No.
That's maybe. I mean, I'm not a programmer myself, but that sounds like maybe 10 minutes of work. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have been opposed to the full-scale remake that has been kind of begged for ever since that PS3 demo years ago. But at the same time, I wouldn't have wanted to deal with any of the more devout fans of the series for the next 5 years had that happened.
Yeah.
And I am pretty sure that had that been the announcement, the ensuing collective fangasm would have knocked the Earth off axis.
Yeah.
And possibly killed us all. So, Square Enix saving lives. I will maintain that to the last. And they're still, you know, it's Final Fantasy VII on a next-gen platform. They're keeping the game alive, and there are a lot of other really good JRPGs that haven't been that lucky. So I'm just hoping that all of this adds up to a trend that it looks like it's adding up to, where the genre kind of returns to the form that it had before everyone started chasing this separate Western market that doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
Go back to what they were doing late 90s, early aughts, and they'll have a really good thing going, especially with the hardware we got now.
Yeah. I
I was saying, oh, go ahead.
So recently we saw Ys 8, and that looks like a completely different game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll look forward to anything that Falcom wants to give me, but yeah, especially on the PS4 hardware, they're definitely gonna. I think they're tired of being considered obscure by locales and fan bases that don't know better.
Yeah.
Everything that they've been doing for the past couple of years seems to be like this huge push for really headlining status outside of Japan, but without compromising the product the way Square Enix has for so many years now.
Yeah.
And, not that I needed anything else to admire Falcom for, but they're really showing the world how to be a JRPG developer.
Yeah. And they're one of the oldest, so I mean, if any company's going to do it, it's going to be one that's been in there since the beginning and has had to adapt to console generations, PC generations.
They've definitely got the clout for it. I'm kind of surprised even now, like, I can bring up the Ys franchise or The Legend of Heroes or Xanadu and still have some people going, what?
Yeah.
So hopefully between good localization from Exceed, I mean, they deserve all the props in the world as well for what they've been doing with Falcom's catalog.
Yeah.
But Falcom themselves, they seem to be really wanting to take the steps to broaden their global profile. And so hopefully they play a really big role in this kind of JRPG renaissance that we're seeing the beginnings of at PlayStation Experience and TGS, because that's exactly where they should be.
Yeah, let's hope they carry that momentum into E3, and we'll start seeing more good JRPG stuff. Yeah.
So, what all did you really take away in the end? Would you say from PlayStation Experience?
I basically took away the fact that Sony is very focused on giving people who like to play games the games they like to play. Big shooters, or whether you like more smaller indie stuff, or just or RPGs, or anything like that, or fighters, whatever. Seems like you'll find that on the PlayStation. I was a little disappointed that we didn't see Wipeout come back or Ridge Racer come back, but we still have E3 coming up. Maybe there's some hope there still.
Yeah, there's time.
Yeah.
And I mean, those teams are still around. Obviously, Studio Liverpool under a different name now, Fire Sprite.
Yeah.
They got to have something to do.
Yeah.
They're, they exist as entities. They're not. I doubt they're just showing up and collecting a paycheck. They got to be working on something.
Yeah.
And the one thing I wanted to point out is that Sony is doing everything they can to give people, like you said, people who love to play games the games they love to play. That was Sony in their absolute peak form.
Yeah.
In the PS1 days, they were just, whatever it is, let's put it out there.
Yeah. This was 1999 Sony. I mean, I haven't seen this kind of focus on the gamer from Sony for for more than 2 decades.
Like
a decade and a half.
After a bunch of their games stopped looking like bad PC knockoffs, but before they turned into a bunch of douchebags and screwed over working designs, that's the Sony I love.
Yeah.
Those years. Before they started getting kind of elitist with their production policies for a while there.
Yeah, they started getting all Nintendo on everybody.
But after they got the kinks out of the PS1, those were the years.
Yeah.
And I've never seen it look more like those years than it does right now.
Yeah. And that is good for everybody.
Yeah. I think that's also a good note to end on. PlayStation experience, it wasn't what we thought it was going to be, but it certainly lived up to the hype.
Yeah, we were expecting a whole lot of sodium chloride, but that's not what we got.
Yeah, well, the sodium chloride is just that we didn't get to go.
Yeah, we didn't get one of those sweet 20th anniversary PS4s. Yeah, well.
Yeah. They have to put those controllers on sale. I don't see there's any way they can't.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people who would want stuff like that already have a PS4, and I don't see someone buying a second PS4 just to get the 20th anniversary unless they have more money to know what to do with. But those controllers, you could put those on the mass market and they would sell like crazy.
Yeah.
Especially to old heads like us who were actually a part of those years and really came to love the PlayStation brand as far back as that.
Yeah. Yep. It wouldn't be difficult for them to do, so let's hope somebody's listening and they'll eventually do that.
I splattered it all over Twitter yesterday, so hopefully somebody from Sony was reading it.
Yeah.
So, sounds like that's a show.
Yeah, quite a show. Yeah.
Hopefully our show lived up to the hype too.
Yeah. And with that, we'll see you next week.
See ya.